The rain came down in silver sheets, drumming against the old tin roof as Emily sat alone in her dimly lit kitchen, her trembling hands wrapped around a chipped porcelain mug of tea. Just hours ago, her world had shattered. Her husband of 12 years, the man she had given everything to, had walked out, leaving nothing behind but a bitter note that read, "I'm done with this life. You and I were never meant to last." Her chest felt hollow, as if her very heartbeat had been stolen. She had sacrificed her own dreams to build his, only to be abandoned when she needed him most. Yet, amid the devastation, there was a flicker, a faint, almost imperceptible spark of resilience within her, and that's where her story truly began. Before I continue, if stories like these touch your heart and inspire your soul, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to my channel, Soul Spark, for more powerful life-changing stories. The days that followed were a blur of silence and sorrow. Emily, 36, once full of laughter, now found herself sitting for hours staring out the window, trying to stitch back the fragments of her broken identity. Bills piled up on the counter, her savings dwindled, and the once cozy home now echoed with loneliness. But fate often plants seeds of hope in the unlikeliest of places. One cold evening, while walking home from her late night shift at a diner, Emily heard soft sobs echoing from an alleyway. She paused, her umbrella trembling slightly in her hand, and followed the sound. There, huddled under a thin blanket, were 3 children, 2 boys and a little girl, shivering in the rain. The eldest, perhaps 12, stared at her with defiant eyes, as though daring her to pass by like everyone else. The younger boy clutched his sister protectively, while the girl, barely 6, whispered through her tears, "I'm so cold." Emily's heart clenched. She remembered how it felt to be discarded, unwanted. She could have walked away, telling herself she had enough problems of her own. But something deep inside her refused. She knelt beside them and said softly, "You don't have to be alone anymore. Come with me." The children hesitated, their eyes full of mistrust. They had been abandoned too many times. But when Emily held out her trembling hand, the little girl reached out first, and in that fragile moment a bond was formed that would change all of their lives. The transition wasn't easy. Emily's small house was barely enough for herself, let alone 3 growing children. Food became scarce, and she often skipped meals so they could eat. The boys, Jacob, 12, and Daniel, 9, struggled with nightmares from their past, while little Lily clung to Emily's side, afraid to let her out of sight. But Emily gave them something they had never known: unconditional love. She listened to their fears, bandaged their scraped knees, and read them bedtime stories until they fell asleep in her arms. Slowly, laughter returned to the house. Slowly, the walls of fear around the children's hearts began to crumble. Still, Emily wrestled with her own doubts. Could she really do this? She had no husband, no financial security, and the weight of 3 little lives depending on her. Yet every time she looked into their eyes, she knew walking away was not an option. Her sacrifices were endless. Working double shifts, selling her jewelry to pay for school supplies, wearing old clothes so the children could have new ones. But in their joy, she found purpose. And for the first time in years, Emily felt alive. Then came the day everything changed. One crisp autumn morning, while walking the kids to school, Emily noticed a sleek black car parked across the street. The driver watched them intently, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Days later, another car appeared, different but with the same unsettling presence. At first, Emily thought it was coincidence. But when a well-dressed man approached her at the diner where she worked, her heart raced. "Mrs. Emily Collins?" he asked politely. "Yes," she replied cautiously, tightening her grip on the tray in her hand. The man smiled, handing her a card embossed with gold lettering. "I represent the Wilshire estate. May we have a word about the children?" Emily's breath caught. Fear surged through her veins. Were they here to take the kids away? That evening, sitting across from 2 lawyers in her modest living room, Emily listened in stunned silence as the truth unraveled. Jacob, Daniel, and Lily were not ordinary children. They were the lost heirs of a wealthy family that had perished in a tragic plane crash years ago. Their grandfather, a business tycoon, had left behind a staggering fortune of $60 million intended for his grandchildren. But the children had vanished into the foster system, slipping through the cracks until fate led them to Emily. Her mind spun. $60 million. Heirs to an empire. She glanced at the children, who sat close to her, their wide eyes filled with confusion and fear. All she could think was, they're mine. Money or no money, they're mine. The lawyers explained that Emily would need to go through legal proceedings to formalize the adoption. Once complete, she would become their guardian and trustee of their inheritance. For a moment, Emily's old doubts returned. She was just a waitress, abandoned and broken. How could she raise children with such a legacy? But Jacob's hand slid into hers, Daniel rested his head against her shoulder, and little Lily whispered, "Don't let them take us, Mommy." And in that moment, Emily knew, no amount of money, no power, no lawyer could change what they already were, a family. The months that followed were a whirlwind of court hearings, background checks, and relentless scrutiny. Reporters camped outside her home, neighbors whispered, and distant relatives of the children emerged from the shadows, eager to claim their share. But Emily stood firm, fighting tooth and nail for the children who had healed her as much as she had healed them. When the final ruling came, declaring Emily their legal mother and guardian, tears streamed down her face. The judge's words echoed in her soul, family is not always bound by blood, but by love and commitment. The inheritance followed, and though the number, 60 million, seemed surreal, Emily's focus never wavered. She invested wisely, securing the children's future, but continued working part-time at the diner, teaching them humility and the value of hard work. The kids flourished. Jacob excelled in school, Daniel discovered a love for painting, and little Lily bloomed into a joyful spirit who never stopped calling Emily her hero. Years later, standing together on the porch of a bigger but still humble home, Emily watched the sunset with her children, her family. She thought back to that night in the rain when she had extended her hand to 3 frightened strangers. She had saved them, but in truth, they had saved her. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Soul Spark for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of love and resilience, because in the end, Emily's story wasn't about abandonment or wealth. It was about the choice to love when it was hardest, to give when she had nothing, and to build a family where there once was none. And that, dear friends, is the kind of wealth no money can ever measure.